It isn't, your purpose isn't to try to be loving. Your purpose is to be love and only have that to give away. Well, but there's one other ingredient, and it's really crucial. Forgiveness is the vital ingredient on the path of enlightenment. And if you don't know how to do it, then practice sending out love. Take the person or the people that you're having conflict with, any place in your life, send them something. You don't have to even do it physically. Just send them something that comes from inside. And what's inside is how you choose to think. And if you can make that love and do that, and that is to me the test. Not whether you can love someone when they smell good, when they do everything that you're supposed to, but whether you can love someone who has sent you hate or anguish in your life and send it back. You don't have to forget. You don't have to go back. But you got to get it out of you because it is blocking you and holding you back.
Living the Tao Te Ching, this 2,600-year-old, some people call it the greatest, the wisest book ever written. It speaks so much about relationships. Tao, the word Tao, means the great way. It's really just another synonym for God, or source, or spirit, or that which is the all-creating. And one of the things that it says that was really helpful to me, probably the most helpful thing in it, was that whenever you have a conflict of any kind, in any relationship, whenever you have a conflict, that the person who is willing to be of Tao, of God, of Source, is the one who will practice forgiveness, or will go to the person that they have a conflict with and bring love to it, instead of the freeze out, instead of the anger, instead of the hatred, instead of the revenge, instead of so many of the things that we do when we have conflicts in our lives. We just don't talk to that person. Like, I'm not talking to that. I'm not talking to him. He's going to call me because I called the last time. And but the person who lives the Tao life, the life of a higher consciousness, is the person who says, "I end all conflicts on love, which is where we all come from. We come from a source that is love. So for me, that has been just so useful. I have 8 children, and that's been just extraordinarily helpful for me to be in a relationship where I can always be of love, where I can just, and so then you don't even, conflicts become something that are no longer present, because conflict requires two-ness. In order to have a conflict, you have to have two. You have two different opinions or whatever. But if you live in oneness, if you really see yourself in everyone else, see yourself in all the things, including the plants, including the animals, and including all beings, and so on. If you just suspend this ego part of you and just see yourself in that other person, then your arguments are really with yourself. And your hatreds are really about yourself. And you begin to really see that I don't have to project anything onto anyone else that isn't what I choose to be.
And the idea of allowing is that you start to see that, you start to look at the world not the way you want it to be. This is the shift in our subconscious mind training that we have to go through. We have to get out of this mindset that the world ought to be the way I want it to be, and things ought to be going the way I think that they should be going, and that there should be nothing bad happens, and all of this kinds of stuff that we fill our inner world with, and talk about how terrible this is and that is and so on, when in fact the world is just the way it is. And when you can align yourself with that awareness that yes, you can do things to improve it and so on, but not by judging it, and not by saying that it shouldn't be this way. I've given the example many times of my friend Ram Dass, who, when we were talking about starvation, and it was when I was working for the Hunger Project to try to end hunger by the beginning of this century. This was back in the 1980s. And Ram Dass said to me many years ago that starvation, in different parts of the world, is part of the perfection of the universe. You've got to understand that. As hard as that is to grasp, And I paused and thought about that, and my original reaction is, how can you say such a thing? How can we accept the idea that some people have got to starve to death in a world where there's plenty of food and the technology to be able to grow it and so on is all here? How can you say that? But then he concluded his remark to me. He said, so starvation is a part of the perfection of the world, but so is your desire to end it. That's part of the perfection of the world. And so it's like and so where you put your attention is not on what you don't want, because if what you think about is what expands, and if you put your attention on the things that you don't like and that you don't want, then you just multiply the amount of negativity and the amount of what you don't want. You become a part of the very thing that you are trying to eradicate.